This past season, the Atlanta Hawks haven't really given us positive results, at least not as much as we expected. In the 2021-22 season, after advancing to the Eastern Conference Finals during the 2021 NBA playoffs, they decided to run things back. Naturally, they're one team that's prepared to make some changes to their roster in the 2022 offseason, and here's why. First up, the Eastern Conference Finals. In the Eastern Conference, the Hawks finished at 9th position. They'd have to defeat the Cleveland Cavaliers and Charlotte Hornets in the play-in tournament to make the postseason field, but to no avail. They were promptly defeated by the Miami Heat in the first round. Sheesh. The first round series with the Miami Heat was enough proof for the team to realize they'd need a lot of work before being considered contenders. Travis Schlenk, general manager of the Hawks, has stated that they do indeed plan to make upgrades this season, since running it back again isn't something they're considering. And this seems very likely. The Hawks have had several players they can execute very interesting trade packages with. To name a few, we have veterans John Collins, Danilo Gallinari, Clint Capella, Bogan Bogdanovic, and Kevin Huerter, along with youngsters like DeAndre Hunter, Jalen Johnson, and Onyeka Okongwu. Who, we wonder, could this franchise want to get on board? Well, we have a few potential candidates in mind. Next, Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert. Like the Hawks, another team is quickly approaching an offseason that'll need some significant changes to their roster, and it's the Utah Jazz. Let's be honest though, Utah's had a lot more success than the Hawks in recent seasons, but at the end of the day, Atlanta's the one who's had the deepest playoff run of both franchises. Utah will probably be pushed to move Donovan Mitchell this offseason. It's either him or Rudy Gobert, and we think the Hawks need to shimmy in and snatch up either of the all-star duo. If Donovan Mitchell does end up leaving the Utah Jazz, the Atlanta Hawks are one of the only 3 teams that he reportedly is interested in joining, the other 2 being the New York Knicks and the Miami Heat. And adding another vital scorer with Trae Young would make the Hawks' offense even more powerful. While all that is well and good, it's no secret that Atlanta should have its major focus towards the defensive side of the game rather than the offensive. And Rudy Gobert is no less than one of the best defensive players of the NBA. So there's no doubt he'd help them greatly on that front. He'd be the anchor they need right now. He's got the power to turn the game around without the ball touching his hands. Now let's talk about Ben Simmons. We all know Simmons was traded to the Brooklyn Nets recently after the end of his journey with the Philadelphia 76ers. What sucks is that the Atlanta Hawks were one of his potential landing spots. Now that he's with the 76ers though, we still don't think the Hawks should stop trying to pursue him. If by chance the Nets try looking to flip Simmons this offseason, Atlanta should once again present him with a potential landing spot for his services. What makes him an even better selection is that he wouldn't be as expensive to acquire. The player missed the entire 2021-2022 season because of his back injury, along with some time for his mental health. But we'd be lying if we said Young and Simmons are guaranteed to work well together. Trae Young is genuinely one of the most ball-dominant players in the entire NBA. The ball is always in his darn hands, and Simmons needs the ball to make an impact on offense. Recipe for disaster? It does have the potential to be. But if, by some miracle, Nate McMillan manages to convince Ben Simmons to function by rolling to the rim and setting screens, well, let's just say the Hawks would be back in business. Last but not least, though, is Simmons' defensive versatility, arguably the biggest asset he could give the team. It's pretty obvious at this point that Atlanta needs major help on the defensive side. Simmons is the perfect player for this. He can defend quite literally every position on the basketball court, what with his great combination of physicality and athleticism. Containing big men and stifling guards are 2 things that seem to be second nature to him, since the roster is constructed in an almost misshapen way. Adding Simmons to the mix shouldn't be a big feat. The Hawks currently have shooters swarming the court and a serious lack of defenders. Simmons' strengths way outweigh his weaknesses in this regard, and he'd be a perfect fit. Up next, Anthony Davis. If the Atlanta Hawks want to return to the Eastern Conference Finals in full force and then eventually go even further, they gotta pull out the big guns. They got pretty close with the group they had before, but it's imperative that they get another star on board to aim even higher. Here's an idea. Why not call up the LA Lakers and see what it'd take to get Anthony Davis? The Lakers are another team that are currently facing issues with their own roster, and trading Davis wouldn't be such a bad idea for them to rebuild it. The Hawks, on the other hand, can make a super appealing and competitive package with a balanced mix of both veterans and young players to appease the Lakers. Let's not forget, the Hawks have all their first-round picks and an extra in the 2023 playoffs, so draft capital is no problemo. Davis is one of the best players in the whole NBA when he's healthy. We're no strangers to the injuries this man has gotten, but he's also come out of them stronger than ever before, and he's the kind of star who would gel perfectly with Trae Young, what with his defensive versatility and rim protection, which would inarguably add the perfect amount of power to that end of the court. And now that Clint Capella is in the game again, Davis can be power forward too, which is what he prefers. One thing's for sure though, the offensive game plan would have to be adjusted slightly slightly, because Young averaged nearly 8 more shots per game than his next closest teammate. But then again, there's currently no player on the Hawks roster who warrants the kind of offensive load that Davis would. And with Davis on the team, Young would have to adjust. If he does though, it'll mean all the more wins for his team, and that's something he should be more than willing to compromise for. That isn't all though. The Hawks have big contract decisions to make this offseason, with 3 of their most prominent players, Trae Young himself, John Collins, and Kevin Huerter. While Young and Huerter are up for their rookie scale extensions, Collins is eligible for restricted free agency. And now Collins. It's pretty understandable why Collins' situation would be the trickiest of them all. Firstly, the player's contract is dangerously close to expiring, and considering how there's an abysmal lack of top-level talent on the free agent market right now, Collins is acclaimed enough to get a whopping salary offer from a rival team, even maximum salary. This, of course, would probably be higher than what the Hawks can offer him. Last year, the Hawks offered Collins a 4-year extension worth over $90 million, and it's fair to assume they'd raise it to the $100 to $105 million range. But here's the catch. A maximum offer from another team would be an estimated $121 million, and a loss like this would greatly decrease the Hawks' flexibility in the following years. We're going to take a seat, grab some popcorn, and see if they're ready to match that kind of offer if it comes to it. Another thing to consider, though, is the fact that there aren't a great amount of teams with substantial cap room this offseason, so there's a small chance that Atlanta could get Collins back at a more economical rate, if you get what we mean, especially if they negotiate directly. We'll take a wild guess and say there's a high chance the Hawks will retain Collins for the time being, and then eventually consider a trade once he's in a long-term deal. But this is in no way a close-ended solution. Up next, Young. The Trae Young situation should be way simpler, considering how he's the Hawks' leading scorer and the centerpiece of their franchise. It's highly unlikely they won't put the max offer on the table for him, but one sticky bit in these negotiations would be whether he'd get a 5th-year player option, Rose Rule language, and a 15% trade kicker, all of which could bump his starting salary to 30% of the cap. These two aren't points where we think Atlanta will hold back. There's no reason for them to be anything but accommodating. And now, Huerter. Let's be honest, Huerter won't be offered anything close to the max offer, but we can't deny he's become a reliable sharpshooter and secondary playmaker for Atlanta. When it comes to eligible comparables for Huerter, Luke Kennard is top of the list. Being one of the players who signed rookie-scale extensions in 2020, Kennard got a 4-year, $56 million contract, which means Huerter's reps will probably try to either match or exceed that number. That's a wrap for this video. What changes do you think the Hawks should make to their roster for the next playoffs? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.